Hello and welcome to the New Moon Tarot reading for the 24th of March 2020. It was funny because last time I did the New Moon Tarot reading, I was talking about what a past couple of weeks it had been when I was speaking to you last, and little did I know that things would change dramatically between then and now, and in ways that have really put that into a different kind of focus. Our priorities have no doubt changed. Your priorities have changed. My priorities have changed. And we in the world have all been brought together under this one viral umbrella. And it seems to be bringing out the very best in us and also the very worst in some of us. And it really is an opportunity more than ever to apply the work that I have been talking about for years now, which is that idea of going within, not looking outside. And in fact, the last card in last month's reading is thrown into a very different light in light of what has happened over the past few weeks. And that was the card of the Three of Wands of virtue, which was, as I was talking back then, of going your own way. And many of us, many of you will no doubt have felt that in a very physical, very practical way of isolating, of quarantine, of feeling a sense of separation from others, and even perhaps feeling a sense of separation from yourself as well. And really, if there's anything that comes out of this kind of inner work that we do, and particularly actually with the Three of Wands that we were talking about last month, and if you haven't seen the reading last month, it might be worth just going back and having a look, is really the need more than ever right now to re-establish that connection with yourself, to re-establish that that very vital lifeline, and I really mean that, to that inner part of yourself that can really sort of, it can pass out, P-A-R-S-E, it can separate out really the bullshit from the truth. Not the bullshit from the universal truth, but the bullshit that that we all come across in our daily lives, from the truth that is unique to each of us, and we will all have a different kind of truth. So bear that in mind with the Three of Wands. I have no idea what cards are going to come up this month, but I think it was worth just looking back for a moment to see just how true that was about that lone figure walking down a road, and what that can mean, as I said, both from a practical point of view and view of isolation and quarantine, but also about really having to hold to your guns in certain matters, and particularly at a time when people are losing their minds, and finding that sense of equilibrium is going to be incredibly valuable, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. I know it's a great responsibility, but really the responsibility, as we've found out from country to country, doesn't simply rest with the governments that apparently rule over us, and in fact doesn't rest at all with some governments who seem to be making some very strange choices. And therefore it behooves us even more to look inside at that truth that then can guide us in a more practical and realistic way, in one that is more in line not only with our own values, but then will in turn have an impact on the people around us. So I thought I'd say that. I also wanted to just talk a little bit about the thought process around the reading, because I know that some of my esteemed colleagues have decided, and rightly so, not to do readings in light of what's been going on, that for them they have felt like it hasn't felt the right thing to do. And I totally understand why, and in fact for the last few days I've been wondering whether I should be doing a reading as well. And because of the emphasis that I put on my readings about what is going on inside as opposed to what's going on outside, I do think that these readings have a place in this, and have a relevance that perhaps may not have been apparent beforehand. So bearing that in mind, I'd like to re-emphasize a few things. the present moment is really all that we have. And if we keep just putting ourselves at the center of the picture, we can really begin to grasp our own sense of how we can operate within an environment that has changed so much over the last few weeks. And for some of you, it will have changed to the point where you will not recognize your life as it is now anymore. It will be able to give you something that you can then use in those circumstances that's far more relevant than what's going to happen outside. What's going to happen outside the door? What's going to happen in the world? What's going to happen to others? No, it is, as always, what is happening right now in me, upon me, and what is it that I can look at that may then bring some kind of clarity, and what is it that I can do within the confines of what the hand that I'm being dealt with. And there really is that idea of being confined as well. Actually, anything that we've been dealing with in our outside lives in terms of our own growth, our own progress, and all of the setbacks that we encounter in that soul journey through life, that journey towards individuation, the journey that's never over, really. All of those things are going to be equally, if not more relevant now, mostly because the noise outside in our world, as our worlds have got smaller and smaller, our physical worlds. I mean, I know that many of us are turning to the news regularly and to social media and all of that. So we have very much a handle on what's going on outside in the world. But our physical constraints for many in quarantine, in lockdown, and for people who are realizing that those are things that are going to be imminent, or many of us who are inside because we're ill, we're going to find that actually everything that has been impacting our lives, the work that we've been doing, is going to have the volume turned up on it, because the volume outside, all of the distractions, the going out, shopping, having fun, mixing with people, work, all of those things have been dialed down. So the inner volume comes up. And I think that that's really what a lot of people may also be struggling with, is the idea that on top of what's going on in the world and the uncertainty, that things are dialed up inside as well. And where those things are dialed up, they then impact or interact with what's going on in the world. And it can create very volatile concoctions, and people, getting angry, people getting sad, people getting fearful. So really, what I'm suggesting is that these three cards are a way of a kind of active mindfulness about what's going on personally for each one of you, that is not to do with a virus, but rather to do with your own innate responses to it, in spite of it and because of it. And how that then can help you create some sense of meaning that you make in your life about not necessarily what's going on in the bigger picture, but how it is that you are when the backdrop is this bigger picture that's going on in the world. I hope that makes some kind of sense. And I know that things are going to be dialed up, particularly, in those areas of relationships and work and money. Those things haven't gone away. In fact, for many of us, those things are going to become ever more present, particularly if we are in confined spaces with the very people who push our buttons the most, or our financial worries now have been increased because of the uncertainty about what's happening with our work. And our work worries are increased because of, practical implications of either not being able to work, or having to go into work, or having to work from home, and possibly also with a full house as well. So I'm asking you to get not philosophical about this, but get thoughtful. Get creative about the way that these cards can be applied. And again, my intention is not to read about the course of the coronavirus. That is secondary in the context of this reading. What is much more important each and every one of you. And so without further ado, I'm actually going to go into the cards. I have shuffled, I have drawn the cards. As always, I have not seen the cards, so they're going to be the first time that I see them as well. And let's see what story builds up that then will have a unique color, a unique hue, a unique sense of meaning to each and every one of you out there, because you will bring your own uniqueness to the meanings of the cards. And then therefore, hopefully you can take something away that is entirely personal to you. So this foundational card is something that's happened, but it is really having an impact on what's going to be happening in the second card, which is the current weather around you, inside you, coming at you from others, from the world. So here is your foundation card, which is the Ace of Swords. I'm really sorry with the lighting. I decided to do this one at night. The reason being is that it felt right to do it in the dark. I think a lot of us are in the dark. It felt right to align with the mood of it. But I also wanted to have that sense of being as close to the new moon as possible, so that there is a certain sense of synchronicity that is enabled through that. Ace of Swords, that is insight. It is the potential to cut through all of the bollocks, all of the bullshit that's going on in the world. This is the foundation. So in other words, you already have this. This is here. This is not something to be that you need to win or you need to find. If anything, if you have to search for it, you have to search for it inside. So if there is any searching to be done, it's simply the search or the quest to recognize what you already have, that it's been with you all along, this Ace of Swords. So the Ace of Swords is the wisdom card. It is the initiator of the sword suit. The sword suit is the suit of the intellect. It's the suit of the mind, of all all thoughts, anything to do with being able to analyze, anything to do with beliefs. It's to do with speech as well. It's to do with the written word, communication. But here the Ace of Swords, because it's an ace, it is the potential to do with it what you will or what you want to do. So it's for good or for ill that you can use this sword. And this sword, as you can see with the light shining off it, that light of the soul, the light of enlightenment, of illumination, of understanding, that is a very, very sharp blade, and it cuts both ways. So it can be ruthless one way or the other. Very often I've used the analogy with swords cards, and particularly with the Ace of Swords, it can be a sword in battle that can cut someone's head off, or it can be a scalpel that heals. So one way or the other, you have a formidable weapon, and that weapon is your own mind. So I think inherent in this, and this is the foundation, is this understanding that your own mind is really the key here to how it is that you respond to what's going on in your life, whether that response is to the most immediate current events, i.e. the virus that is going on, or the ones that have been there all along, that these events are now bringing up to the surface, the relationships that I was talking about, the sense of one's own financial security, sense of job security, all of that. So it's the ability to be able to apply the sword one way or the other. So how is it that you choose to use your mind right now? What is it that you're going to be thinking about? Where is it that you put your intellectual energy? What is it that you're going to be picking apart and analyzing? Because you can analyze with the Ace of Swords down to the nth degree, and you will be brilliant at it. And just with that then, and you will, because this is foundational, you will have experience of this, of noticing where your mind takes you when you start thinking, and noticing just how vivid your mind can create how vividly it can create your reality. So really what you have here, what you're bringing in, is this knowledge of how it is that you think about things, and in turn then how you respond based on those thoughts, what you feel based on those thoughts, how you act based on those thoughts, and how you shape your reality based on those thoughts. It is really the beginning of every thought that you have. And what this card is clearly saying is that you are much more empowered than you think about what you think. So this is the gift that you already have. And maybe part of this is to search for what it is that is already there, which is your insight, for good or for ill. So that is your foundation. And let's see what it is that you're going to be meeting with your sword, both inside and outside. But this, I would like to get a little bit esoteric about this. It's not limited to the physical reality of this world, but rather the greater meaning that all of these events have for you. So this is what you're meeting. Now, interestingly, this was in last month's reading, and that is what was coming for you. And well, I would say that the thing that was foundational, that was on its way and coming, and it was, that it had already set out on its journey, is now here. So if you go back to last month's reading, if you haven't gone there, I would suggest that you do now, is what it is that that came up for you, or what will come up for you when you watch that again, and see what it is then that may have come closer in terms of that. And it is a sense of something. It's a sense of something that is for you. It is for you. If you look at the Charioteer, which is this Formula One racing car, it is not focused on anything else other than the person who is looking at the card. Okay, so it is for you. This is almost like a messenger. The chariot is also about, and this will have a link to this idea of the messenger, of being prepared, of having things lined up, of getting scrupulously, impeccably ready for something. So in other words, it is really about a sense of alignment inside and outside, so that you are then able to meet what is coming for you, which is essentially a part of you already. It is connected to you, and you are able to make the most of it when it happens. There is a sense also of speed with this. It is a Formula One car after all. So if we again take it inside, it's what it is that you are able to identify once you have applied the sword. Okay? If you look at the light in the visor of the Charioteer, I would say that that is the light of the sword. There is that sense of the Charioteer being explained in light of insight. So to put it another way, be meticulous in your thoughts about what it is that the Charioteer embodies for you, okay? So that you are able to separate the bullshit from the truth. And the truth may look completely different from the story that the bullshit is spinning you. So there is a lot of stuff flying around at the moment in social media, in the world. There is a lot of stuff in the collective awareness of what's going on. There's also a lot of bullshit and some truth in the collective unconscious. And I think that what this reading is saying very clearly is use what you have, that sword, in order to be able to identify clearly what it is that is there for you, that was always there for you, that was single-mindedly coming for you, because it is intimately, ultimately connected to you. There is something here that is not for anyone else in this. It is a tailor-made encounter with an aspect of the soul. And that then, coupled with the Ace of Swords, can make for a potentially really powerful sense of awareness of something that has that ability to transform, as long as you are on this equilibrium. So this idea of having your ducks lined up, of being able to get, as I said last month, that racehorse into the stall instead of prancing around outside. And you see a lot of people mentally prancing around and not actually being able to get themselves disciplined enough to line themselves up for the work at hand. But if you're able to do that, then you are able to go along a trajectory that you were built for. As that horse, you were built to run. You know, as that Formula One driver, you were built to drive. But you have this rocket fuel here that is able to propel you. It can either spin you in a circle, or it can propel you in a disciplined way to move forward in a way that works specifically for you. While many of us will look at the Chariot and say, well, you know, there's no way that we can avoid the fact that there is an event sweeping towards us that is particularly powerful, and therefore, you know, this must be for us. I would say that when you apply the sword to see the truth behind that idea of the Chariot. Because again, these readings are about something that is individual to you. We are being buffeted around on the collective ocean at the moment. And the ocean can feel incredibly unsafe if you get swept around in every single wave that comes up. And particularly because we are all connected, and therefore anyone who makes a ripple, it can end up feeling like a tsunami when it gets close to you. The idea here is to find an anchor within, to find a still point within. And that then is the Chariot in a new light. And however that new light applies to you is entirely for you to come up with, because of course you have the ability to come up with it yourself. So while there is the overlay of current events going on in the world, that is not the full story of the Chariot, because then it has to come down to the individual. And the individual story can sometimes be, it can sometimes be very different if you can look underneath. It can sometimes, once those overlays, once those layers have been pulled back, it may look like something that you weren't expecting. It may shed light on a relationship. It may shed light on an aspect of yourself. It may shed light on how it is that you interact with your work, with your creativity. What it is that's been going on in you all along, that these events have now given you an opportunity to put a magnifying glass over. And that magnifying glass can be distorted by all of the voices and all the currents and all of the news and all of the social media and all of that, until you cut the bullshit away and you get down to the true meaning of the Chariot. So that is a formidable pairing. And I'd ask you to bear those in mind, because it is calling you to some kind of inner work and calling you to some kind of truth about yourself. And when you recognize it, then it will be like looking in the eyes of the other, which is exactly what the Chariot or the charioteer is. It is looking at a part of you that has been looking for you all along. And then finally you meet. And so you've got the foundation of the sword, but where it is that you have agency. So this is a moment or an opportunity, or a tool, or even a weapon that you can use to make the most of what's going on. So it's either to make the most to enable what's going on, or it is to mitigate what's going on, so that in some way you are able to take back a sense of control of your own thoughts, Ace of Swords, particularly if you lose equilibrium, and to take back control of your own destiny, really, what it is that you're being called to do. And when I talk about destiny, by the way, I'd like to get really clear here. I'd like to get clear about a lack of clarity. And that is, you do not have to work this out all at once immediately. This is not where you go, well, I have no idea what she's talking about. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be finding. And then you have a sense of urgency, because if you think that you haven't found it, then you're not doing it well enough, or that's not it. It's the willingness or the will, the Ace of Swords, that idea of being able to do that. It's to embark on that journey. It's to meet the charioteer. And you may look at the charioteer and, in terms of your own metaphorical charioteer, if something's facing you, say, well, I'm not entirely sure what it is that I'm facing here. I'm not entirely sure who you are or what you mean. But you know what? I'm going to stand here in front of you, even if I'm not quite sure what's going on. And I'm just going to apply that sense of curiosity, that sense of like, what's going on? That idea of wanting to question, that I always think is enough. This is not about solving things, but if you solve something, that's wonderful. If you suddenly have this blazing insight about something that you have felt coming towards you all this time, and then realize that actually it's been with you all along, and you have that moment of the coming face to face with that aspect of you, that's wonderful. But if you don't, then that doesn't mean it's a failed trip or it's a failed journey or a failed endeavor, not at all. Because the success lies in asking the first question and taking the first step. And I would say that one of the first steps or the first questions that you ask is, what is really going on here in me? Not out there, not interested in out there, because this is the Ace of Swords. What is really going on in me? You have a major arcana card. This is your soul journey. Own it for yourself. What is going on with you? You may not answer it now. You may answer it later. It may be that the journey towards the answer is the most enriching part of this. So I just wanted to emphasize that if you are not coming up with answers, that's not the point to be your grade A student at the front of the class putting their hand up and getting it right. That's not it. It's just simply asking the questions. Even if the question is, what the hell is going on? That is already a start to the myriad people who don't ever ask that question, that they don't show an interest in that, which is perhaps their journey. But then you're watching this, so I do have that idea of synchronicity, and if you are, then you are the kind of person who is wanting to ask those questions. What is going on in me? What is it that I can see for myself, even if it just means that I take the first step towards trying to discover that? So the tool card and all of this, the one that is going to play a role for you to be able to encourage, to be able to enable or to mitigate what's going on, is a court card, the Queen of Cups. So the Queen of Cups is cups, water, the unconscious, feelings, emotions, because feelings and emotions are really the first indicator of something coming up from the unconscious. And the Queen of Cups is water of water from an elemental point of view. So cups are water, and then the Queen in the courts is water. So it's water, it's total water. So there you go. I was talking about the ocean and being buffeted along. Well, the one part of the ocean that doesn't throw you around all over the place is the ocean itself, if you see what I mean. If you are the ocean, then you are not going to get thrown around, because you are surrendered into the currents that will lead you wherever it is that you need to go. So the Queen of Cups, in a more practical sense, is about trusting your feelings, and trusting your, but not your emotions like fear, not trusting those. It's that felt watery sense of knowing. It is not, it in fact, she stands in quite a contrast to the Ace of Swords. So the Ace of Swords is directed, it's single pointed, it is accurate. It's like, oh, it's this or it's that or it's not that, it's one of those. The Queen of Cups, let's say being oceanic, is diffuse. She is everything and she is nothing. So it's an incredibly Piscean card in that way. It's much more of that idea of the diffuse sense of awareness that then leads you to another kind of truth. So you put these two together and actually you can find some kind of middle path. And if you take them then with the Chariot as a cohesive reading that takes, that sort of dispenses with the sort of card, the position meanings, what you've got there is the sword corresponding to one set of wheels and the Queen of Cups corresponding to the other set of wheels, and you line those up so that the Chariot can move forward. For you to be able to move forward, you need the marriage of that keen intellect, the no bullshit intellect, the one that says yes or no. You need that along with this more diffuse sense of an awareness of the currents that are going on under the surface of the ocean. So the ocean top is where all of the chop and the surf and the waves take place. Underneath it is still. And really then it is about diving down into that still underneath. That is your tool. And paradoxically, when you immerse yourself in the ocean, you will also come into contact with the Ace of Swords, and which is there inside. So I was talking about the Ace of Swords as something foundational. You've already come in with it. And the Ace of Swords is, in order to find it, you connect inside with yourself. So I would suggest then that this is a really practical card, the tool card, and anything that you can think of that works for yourself, that allows you to get off the surface of this choppy, wavy sense of mass unconsciousness and mass consciousness that can throw you from one place to the next. And if you've been like me on social media or news, you go into peaks and troughs immediately, and there you have your waves. So what you need is the Queen of Cups under the surface. Be the ocean. Don't be buffeted by the ocean. Don't be at the whims and mercies of the waves and the currents. You are the waves and you are the currents, and you are that in its entirety by being what's going on underneath. That creates the waves and the currents. So whatever practice it is that you do that connects into that still point inside, the diffuse, I say diffuse point, there's that paradox again, but it is. Because it is everywhere and nowhere. And it is somewhere and it isn't. And it's only when you connect with it that you feel that paradox. So the Queen of Cups is really that idea of meditation. And meditation does not have to be sitting there for 20 minutes with a mantra, though that can be incredibly effective. Meditation is anything where your mind becomes diffuse, where you are absorbed in the process of doing something, whether that is planting a vegetable garden, whether that is doing the washing up, whether that is writing your morning pages, whether that is listening to music, doing something with your hands. Carl Jung said, that the hands solve what the mind cannot. So if you're struggling with this part, the mind, then maybe what you do is you actually end up, you access the problem-solving part of the intellect by not thinking actually about it, but rather by doing something else. It's a displacement activity. It's an activity that you can focus wholly on, so that then that sword comes into focus when you're least expecting it, because you're looking somewhere else. You have to find something, if you're wanting to apply this, that takes you out of yourself and finds and it's a place that you find a sense of stillness. If you can find a sense of stillness by running on a treadmill, that's great. But you are looking for a sense of going under the noise, under the commotion, under all of that, so that you can then feel that equilibrium that you find when you are not getting thrown one way or the other. A reading for our time at the moment. So I'm just going to show you the 3 cards again. So interestingly, we've got a very nice combination here, because we've got an ace, and we've got a major arcana, and then we have a minor arcana, but one of the courts. They are all special cards in their own way. They're all big cards, and big times call for big cards. So what I would say to you is, apply them in the way that's best for you. Apply them in a way that makes sense to you. Go back to that 3 of Wands last time. Go your own way. Don't do it because it makes sense to everyone else. Don't do it because it's something that you feel that you ought to do, because that's the way that it's done, or it's the way that you've been told to do it. If it feels weird, if it feels a little bit out there, if it feels as James Hollis, the Jungian analyst, talks about clunky and chunky, our clunky, chunky selves. If it feels a little bit like that, then that might be for you. It might be something that is entirely personal. You don't have to tell anyone. Therefore, you don't have to apologize about what it is that you're doing. You can just go about your business knowing that you have that ace there, that there is something coming to you that is for you, that is not necessarily what you think it is. And then to notice your thoughts around that. What causes commotion? What causes a sense of calm and peace? What feels like bullshit? And what feels like truth? And if you can't do that, just asking the question can sometimes be the first step. And then to help you along with that, connecting to that space within, that still space, where then that ace is allowed to shine through the murk and come through into focus, so that you can finally recognize what has been in front of you and has been coming for you all along. And in that moment of recognition, you will know. And that is that insight then that the Ace of Swords has been preparing you for. And it sounds momentous, and you know what? It could just be a small thing. It could be a small idea, a small understanding that then ripples out and could change things quite perceptibly in your life, sometimes many years down the line. It could be something incredibly useful and practical. It doesn't have to be life-changing. It doesn't necessarily have to get you onto Oprah. It is just for you. It is for you because it is a part of you. And I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but I think that really it bears repetition because of the noise that is going on around us. And that volume is only going to go up. So go down, in, and then you find what it is that you're looking for. I hope that that is of use to you. Once again, I'm really sorry about the picture quality, but I wanted to do this at night. And I wish you all the very best. For those of you who've emailed, thank you so much for your emails. I am sorry that I haven't replied. I myself have been in quarantine for about 3 weeks because all of us in the household were not particularly well. We are fine now, but if you do contact, if you do connect, then please know that I do read everything. And if you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments section down here on YouTube, or you can send me an email at sarah@integratedtarot.com. I do tend to reply to questions, particularly if they feel pressing. So yes, I will keep a special eye out for that. And also one more thing before I go, which I wanted to announce, is that I decided, having asked on my integrated tarot group on Facebook last week, if there would be any interest in me starting up a work group there. And there was quite a bit of interest. I've decided that this week I am going to be setting up a work group where we share thoughts around particular cards. I haven't got the plans entirely in place, but I do know what it is not. And it is not going to be a place where we request tarot readings, or that I read for you, or do anything like that. It is rather going to be a more meditative way of working with the cards. If you've been on any of my courses or workshops, you'll know it's going to be pretty much in line with that kind of approach. But it's not a prognostic kind of what's going to happen. I'm not interested in that. As you know, and as I've said here, it's what is happening. What do I need to reflect on? What's going to be most important for me to know right now? That kind of thing. I'd like to see what happens if we come together in a group and we can work on things individually. So we're kind of together alone. It's a bit experimental, but I would like to set that up. So if you'd like more information, then check on my Facebook page, which is Integrated Tarot. It should come up pretty quickly in searches. Otherwise, you can email me and ask, and I will be putting it up on my website as well. But in the meantime, I would like to send this reading off with my very best wishes. Take very good care of yourselves, and I will see you next month. Take care. Bye.